Welcome to my channel. I'm Nancy Thompson, your storyteller of American folklore, thrilling mysteries, and much more. Join me today for a captivating tale. To put it another way, back in the days of colonial Virginia, just outside the cliffs of Richmond County, near the bustling town of Williamsburg, a crowd of townsfolk gathered, buzzing with excitement. According to those in the know, this case involved the daughter-in-law of the wealthy Johnson family, who just married into the clan, Catherine Lane. She'd accused her father-in-law, William Bill Johnson III, of spying on her while she changed clothes. Once this scandal broke out beyond the county courthouse, it instantly drew a swarm of curious locals into town, all eager to catch a glimpse of the drama unfolding. Under colonial Virginia law, even if an outsider committed such a peeping offense, the punishment could be severe, sometimes even half a hanging. But a father-in-law ogling his son's wife? That was a whole different level of disgrace. What's more, this Johnson family wasn't just any ordinary bunch. Folks online, well, if they had newspapers back then, would tell you. Bill Johnson wasn't only one of the richest merchants in Richmond County. He was also a respected member of the town council. Most importantly, in the eyes of the townsfolk, Bill was known far and wide as a generous philanthropist. Nobody could believe it. Man this gut. Crawling around to spy on his own daughter-in-law? So, everione Stucker rund. Waiting to see how the county judge would handle this messy case. The county judge of Richmond County, Hugh Davis, got wind of the case and headed straight to the courthouse. In his mind, he was already grumbling about whoever stirred up this mess. Just 1 month left. That's all he needed to wrap up his term without a hitch. If this month went smoothly, he was 90% sure he'd snag a promotion to a higher bench. Hugh Davis had started studying law at age 7, poring over legal books and colonial charters for over 40 years, finally earning his judge's seat after passing the bar in Williamsburg. The struggles he'd faced along the way? Only he truly knew how rough it had been. Coming from a poor family, with no connections to the bigwigs in the colonial government, the year he passed the bar, he got shipped off to Richmond County to serve as a lowly county judge. Under Virginia colonial rules, most officials like him had to ride up to the capital every 3 years for a performance review. If you impressed the governor's council, you might climb the ladder. But Hugh Davis? He hadn't had much luck in the judge's chair. Richmond County was dirt poor, and every so often, floods or droughts would hit, making it near impossible to show off any big wins, even with all his legal know-how. So, 3 reviews came and went. And every time, Hugh fell short. He'd been stuck in Richmond County ever since. Now, at 59 years old, this was his 4th stint as county judge. If he couldn't pull this term off, he figured he'd be stuck here till the grave, no hope of moving up. That's why, when he heard someone banging the courthouse drum, he silently cursed the troublemaker for picking the worst possible time. If this turned into a big scandal, or some naughty case he couldn't crack in a month, this review was toast, another failure on his record. Even though his gut was churning, he steeled himself and marched into the courtroom. All those years studying law, they'd at least taught him the basics of being a public servant. Up above the courtroom bench, he'd even scribbled a motto for himself in his own handwriting. If an official won't serve the people, he might as well go home and sell potatoes. A little reminder to stay honest. Something he'd picked up from his old mentor. Hugh Davis strode into the courtroom, eyeing the 4 folks kneeling below the bench. He grabbed the gavel from the table, slamming it hard against the wood. Who's got the complaint here? Speak up, give me your name. Hugh stroked his beard, his voice booming through the room. Your Honor. A young woman piped up. My name is Catherine Lane. I hail from Westen, over in Fairfax County. I'm here beating the drum for justice. To accuse my father-in-law, Bill Johnson III, of spying on me, his own daughter-in-law. The young woman kneeling to the right spoke up clear as day. The second she said it, the crowd outside erupted. Folks chattering back and forth, unable to believe their ears. Hugh Davis waved a hand at the onlookers, signaling them to pipe down. Hearing the woman's claim, he wasn't quite sold on it himself. After all, Bill Johnson III had a solid reputation. If it weren't for folks like him pitching in during Hugh's tenure, the judge figured he'd have been booted from this gig by the governor's council long ago. "Look up here," Hugh ordered. "Tell this court the whole story, step by step." Hugh Davis gestured for her to go on. "Your Honor," the young woman began, "I'm just a simple girl." "By some twist of fate, I met the Johnson boy, Thomas Johnson. He saved me from a bad spot once, pulled me out of danger. I was grateful for his kindness. And after spending some time together, we hit it off, fell for each other, you could say. We decided to tie the knot on our own terms. See, my folks passed away years ago, and I didn't have any kin left to speak of. So, I went along with Thomas's plan, and moved into the Johnson family estate. The very first time I met his father, Bill Johnson, he gave me this long, hard stare, right through me. If my mother-in-law hadn't stepped in to smooth things over, I reckon he'd have made a move right then and there." Catherine paused, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye with her sleeve. "On our wedding day, bright and early, Bill got into a shouting match with his wife, my mother-in-law. Lucky for us, Thomas stepped in and calmed them down, so it didn't blow up worse than it did. But then, at the reception, Bill had a few too many whiskeys. After he got good and drunk, he stumbled over to our bridal suite and started peeking through the window at me. I caught him in the act and gave him a piece of my mind. But instead of slinking off, he had the nerve to bang on the door, demanding I let him in. Sure, I'd married into the Johnson family, become their daughter-in-law and all. But I'm not about to let that kind of wrong slide. So here I am, Your Honor, asking you to set this straight." With that, Catherine bowed her head and knelt there in the courtroom. Hugh Davis turned to the man beside her. "Bill Johnson, this court knows a thing or two about you. What you got to say about this woman's story? Any defense for yourself?" After eyeing Catherine, Hugh shifted his gaze to Bill, waiting for an answer. "Your Honor," Bill replied, "what my daughter-in-law Catherine Lane's saying, it's true, no denying it. But I've got no excuses to make. It's just the reason behind it all. Please, let me explain it from the start." Bill Johnson III spoke up, his voice carrying a hint of something heavy, like a man with a secret weighing him down. To speed this trial along, Hugh waved a hand, urging Bill to keep going. Bill kaukte Signal, glanced over at his wife, Martha Johnson, for a second. Looked like even she didn't know all the old tales he was about to spill. Turns out, Bill Johnson III had been quite the catch in his younger days, a real scholar. He'd spent over a decade hitting the books. Not just scraping by but excelling. He'd even passed the entrance exams for the College of William and Mary back in the day, when Bill was still a student. He was the generous type, always ready to lend a hand. That won him a tight crew of buddies at school. Among them was a guy named Leonard Leo Tate. Sharp as a tack and just as learned. Out of all Bill's pals, Leo was the one he clicked with most. Only difference? Leo came from nothing, dirt poor. While the Johnsons had deep pockets. That sparked a fire in Leo. A need to prove himself against Bill in every way but money. Even though Bill came from wealth, he didn't flaunt it, ate the same grub as the other students. Lived humble. That's how he and Leo ended up thick as thieves. Practically brothers. Then came the spring of '73. The two of them set out together. Headed to Philadelphia for the big college admissions test. The first 3 days on the road went smooth as silk. They'd stop along the way, sipping ale and scribbling poems. Living that carefree scholar life folks wrote about in the papers. But when they hit the outskirts of Baltimore, ready to cross the Susquehanna River, trouble struck. A storm rolled in out of nowhere. Howling winds and a downpour that wouldn't quit. It flipped the wagon Bill and Leo were riding in right off the road. And their gear, everything they'd packed, got swept into the rushing Susquehanna River. If it had just been their clothes or supplies, they wouldn't have panicked so hard. But the real kicker? Their college admission papers, official passes from the Williamsburg registrar, were in those bags. Lose those, and they'd be barred from the exam hall in Philadelphia. No chance to prove themselves. When Leo saw their stuff vanish into the current, he didn't think twice, just dove into the Susquehanna after it. He forgot how treacherous that river could get, especially in a storm. Bill saw him jump and lunge to grab him, yelling over the wind, "Leo, stop! That water's a death trap." But with the gale roaring and the river churning, it was chaos, waves crashing, rain blinding them. "You're crazy jumping in alone. You'll drown out there," Bill hollered, trying to wrestle Leo back. "No way," Leo shouted, shaking him off. "If those papers are gone, we're done, both of us. I've slaved over books for 10 years, freezing my tail off. All for this shot. Let me go." Leo yanked free of Bill's grip, his voice raw with desperation, and charged toward the riverbank. Bill threw himself at Leo again, but a gust kicked up a cloud of dirt and grit right then, stinging his eyes. He threw an arm up to shield his face, blinking through the haze for just a heartbeat. When he reached out again to grab Leo, his friend was gone, swallowed by the storm. "Leo, where are you?" Bill stumbled to the river's edge, screaming into the void. "Man overboard. Somebody help." He waved frantically at the boats bobbing on the water, his voice cracking as he begged for aid. But the river was a mess of whitecaps now, and with the rain hammering down, the boatmen either didn't hear him, or were too busy fighting to dock their own rigs. No one paid him any mind. Bill's heart raced, his patience shredding. If he hadn't clung to that last shred of sense, he might have jumped in himself. So there he stood, bracing against the storm on that muddy bank, for a good half hour, yelling, waiting, praying. Finally, the rain let up, the wind died down, and Bill collapsed onto the shore, muttering to himself, "It's over. Leo's gone." He sat there numb, calling out Leo's name now and then, until the riverfront was deserted. Only then did he drag himself up to leave. By that point, his clothes were soaked through, his gear lost to the river. Spare shirts, admission papers, and every penny he'd brought for the trip, all gone. They were days out from Williamsburg, 100 miles at least. Turning back home right then? No guarantee he'd even make it without starving first. Out here, he didn't know a soul. No kin to lean on, no one to borrow a dime from. He'd die on the roadside if he didn't figure something out. Only one play left. Find a local farmer, beg for a night's shelter. Maybe a bowl of hot stew if he got lucky. Bill remembered passing a little village a few miles back. So he started trudging that way. It was spring, sure, but with his wet clothes clinging to him, the chill sank into his bones. He was shivering head to toe. He slogged along for over half an hour, teeth chattering, legs ready to give out. Just when he thought he couldn't take another step, he spotted a farmhouse ahead, the front gate creaking open. A frail figure stepped out into the yard. "Help me, please." Bill's voice was weak, barely a croak, shivering so bad he could hardly get the words out. Before he finished, his vision went dark, and he crumpled to the ground. When Bill Johnson came to, he blinked awake to find his buddy Leo Tate, sitting by the bedside, looking a little glum. "Leo, you're alive," Bill croaked, half shocked, half overjoyed, bolting upright despite the ache in his bones. Leo spun around at the sound, his face lighting up when he saw Bill awake. "Bill, you're back with us," he grinned. How are you not dead?" Bill stammered, struggling to sit up fully. "Easy, brother, lie back down," Leo said, tugging the quilt over Bill's shoulders. "You got soaked to the bone in that storm, caught a chill. If you don't rest up, you'll be nursing some nasty sickness for years." Leo fussed over him like a mother hen. "Leo, tell me quick. How'd you make it out of that river?" Bill pressed. "That current was a beast. 1 second you were there, then poof, gone. I was scared out of my mind." Leo chuckled, shaking his head. "Guess I've got a guardian angel, Bill. After I jumped into the Susquehanna, the water dragged me downstream, knocked me out cold. Next thing I know, I'm waking up here, on this bed. We both owe our hides to a girl named Clara Evans." Leo's face softened into a smile as he mentioned her name. "Clara Evans, huh?" Bill said, intrigued. "Where's she at now?" I'd like to thank her myself. She's up in the hills gathering herbs, Leo replied. You still need some tending to, health-wise. Judging by the sky, she'll be back soon enough. Sure enough, just as Leo finished talking, they heard footsteps crunching across the yard outside. Speak of the devil, Clara's here, Leo said with a laugh, hopping up and darting out to greet her. Miss Clara. You're back. Leo's voice carried through the window. Thanks to you, me and my brother hero you big time. These past couple days, you've gone above and beyond. Leo beamed at her. Mr. Tate, you're too kind, Clara's voice came back, soft but firm. It's nothing, just what anyone would do. Has your friend woken up yet? He's awake, doing all right, Leo answered. Give him a bit more rest, and he'll be walking around soon. Good to hear, Clara said. You two catch up, I'll go brew some medicine. A couple doses, and Mr. Johnson's fever should break. No need to trouble yourself, Miss Clara, Bill called from the bed, overhearing them. Let me come with you, I'll help with the herbs. After that, their voices faded. Guess they'd gone off to mix the remedy together. With Clara and Leo looking after him, Bill's strength came back fast. He couldn't help but feel a little guilty, eating and sleeping under Clara's roof for days now. So one morning, he decided to track her down and thank her proper. As he stepped into the yard, he caught a faint murmur coming from the main house. Straining his ears, it sounded like Leo's voice, low and earnest. Miss Clara, please, say yes to me. I know we've only been here a few days, but you've gotten under my skin, etched right into my heart. Every night, I lie awake thinking about you, tossing and turning till dawn. If this keeps up, I reckon I'll waste away from lovesickness. Leo's words spilled out, raw and pleading. Clara's reply came quick and cool. I'm flattered, Mr. Tate, truly. But I'm not looking for that right now. Please don't push me, I've got things to tend to. Excuse me, I'll step out for a bit. Hearing her brush him off, Bill ducked to the side as Clara swept out of the house. She spotted him standing there, gave him a quick glance, then lowered her eyes and hurried off. Right behind her, Leo shuffled out, looking like a kicked puppy. Leo, she's gone outside, Bill said, breaking the silence. Yeah, Bill, you probably heard all that, Leo sighed, rubbing his neck. I didn't mean any harm. I really care for her, you know? If I can't win her over, I'll carry that regret till I'm old and gray. Leo shook his head, deflated. If you're serious about her, Bill offered, I'll go talk to Clara for you, play the wingman. Love's tricky like that, Leo. Don't rush it, give it time. Bill clapped him on the shoulder with a grin. You'd do that for me? Leo's eyes lit up. Bill, if you pull this off, you're my hero, better than family. Leo grabbed Bill's hand, shaking it like a lifeline. Bill didn't waste any time. He followed Clara's trail down to the Susquehanna riverbank, ready to play matchmaker for his buddy. Clara's old man had been a ferryman, living his whole life along that river, making ends meet by fishing and shuttling folks across. A few years back, her pa passed from a bad cough, and her ma followed not long after. To keep food on the table, Clara took up her father's trade, running a small boat along the Susquehanna. That day Leo went under. It was Clara who'd fished him out of the water. Miss Clara. Bill called, catching up to her. Need a hand with the boat today? Clara glanced over, sizing him up with a half-smile. Mr. Johnson, you know your way around water? If you tumble into this river, can you swim yourself out? She teased, gripping a paddle in her hands. Not much of a swimmer, I'll admit, Bill chuckled. But ain't you right there on the boat? If I go overboard, I'm counting on you to haul me up. Days like this stretch long. I figured I'd keep you company. Chat a bit, if you don't mind. Bill flashed her an easy grin. Clara tilted her head, eyeing him sharp. Mr. Johnson, seems like you've got something on your mind. Spit it out, no need to beat around the bush. She wasn't one for games, that much was clear. Bill caught her drift and dropped the small talk. All right, fair enough, he said, scratching his jaw. I overheard you and Leo just now, some of it anyhow. Leo's a good man, Clara. Smart as a whip, too, got real book learning. That river mess cost us both our shot at college. But he's still a catch. If you think he's worth a chance, I'd be happy to put in a good word. Tie the knot between you two, so to speak. Bill laid it all out, plain as day. Clara's eyes locked onto his. Steady and unblinking. Like she was peering straight through him. Far as I know, neither of you's hitched yet. You're out here singing Leo's praises. Putting him up on a pedestal. So what about you, Mr. Johnson? What's your take on me? She kept staring, waiting for his answer. Me and you, we're just strangers really, Bill said. But you've saved both our necks, twice now. That's a debt I won't forget. I owe you more than I can repay. His tone turned serious, almost reverent. If that's how you feel, Clara pressed, then why you here pitching for someone else? Why not speak for yourself? Bill blinked, caught off guard. It hit him slow, like a mule kicking late. She wasn't brushing Leo off because she didn't want love. She just didn't want Leo. Her eyes were on him. Look, Clara, Bill stammered. I'm no prize, decent with words, maybe. But I ain't much to look at. You though, you're kind, strong. A real beauty. I wouldn't dare think I'm in your league. And if I insist? Clara shot back. What's your move then, Mr. Johnson? Bill froze, mouth half open. Scrambling for words. A man's word's his bond, he finally said. And Leo asked me to help him out. If you and me got together, how's that gonna look to him? I'd be stabbing my brother in the back. Bill dropped his gaze, shoulders slumping. Fine then, Clara replied, voice steady. Mr. Johnson, step off the boat. I can't promise anything to your friend. He's got his flaws. You two are patched up now, good as new. No reason to linger here. Pack your things and head out. She turned away. 2 tears slipping down her cheeks. Clara, wait, Bill started. Watching those tears fall. Something stabbed at his chest, sharp as a thorn. Truth was, from the first time he laid eyes on her, he'd felt a spark. Her grit, her free spirit, it pulled him in. But he'd seen Leo's heart set on her too. And after some back and forth in his head, he'd figured he'd step aside. Let his friend have a shot instead of chasing her himself. Clara, I've liked you since day one, he blurted out. But I held back, thought it was fate pushing me away. If this is my chance though, damn it, I'm taking it. With that, Bill stepped forward and pulled Clara into his arms. Love's funny like that. Once you crack the window, it floods the room in a flash. As they stood there, tangled up in each other, neither of them noticed a figure lurking by the ridge, watching from a distance. If they'd looked closer, they'd have seen it was Leo Tate, his fist slamming into the dirt. Fury and heartbreak written all over him. Leo had figured Bill would smooth things over for him with Clara. But seeing them wrapped up in each other's arms? That was a gut punch he hadn't seen coming. After the two of them, Bill and Clara, headed back to the house. They found Leo already sacked out. Or at least pretending to be. Not wanting to stir the pot. Bill and Clara kept their voices low. Swapped a few quiet words. Then slipped off to their own corners for the night. Come midnight. Bill stirred awake, feeling the call of nature. He shuffled out to relieve himself. And as he passed by Clara's room, he caught a sound. Muffled laughter, a man and a woman. Like they were having the time of their lives. Just hours ago, he'd been all soft and starry-eyed. But that noise snapped him awake like a bucket of cold water. He crept closer to the window. Jabbed a finger through the paper pane. Folks didn't have glass out here. And peeked inside by the dim starlight. There they were, Leo Tate and Clara Evans. Tangled up together. Doing what married folks do. They were giggling, whispering sweet nothings. And from what Bill could catch, it was Clara who'd invited Leo Indiana. Seeing that, Bill's insides twisted into knots. This was the same Clara who'd sworn her heart to him that very day. And now she was rolling around with Leo? His best friend, playing him for a fool. And her, no better than a two-faced flirt. Rage boiled up in him. And he stormed back to his room. Yanked on his damp clothes. and bolted out of Clara's place under the cover of night. Maybe it was the sting of betrayal. But when Bill got home, he threw himself into the family business, tagging along with his pa to the trading post, running shipments, balancing the books. Anything to drown out Clara's face. To bury her for good. He begged his old man to find him a wife. 3 days later, Bill married Mary Carver, a plain girl from a decent family down the road. Mary wasn't a stunner like Clara, but she was steady, kind. The type who'd keep a home running smooth. A year later, Mary gave the Johnsons a boy. Bill named him Will Carver Johnson, a nod to forgetting the past. Will sounding like a promise to move on. Time flew by, 18 years in a blink. Will grew up tall and strong. And just as Bill was fixing to arrange a match for him, the kid came home one day, with a young woman on his arm. The second Bill laid eyes on her. Her face hit him like a ghost from the grave, stirring up memories he'd buried deep. Her name was Catherine Lane. And damn if she didn't look like Clara Evans from 18 years back. Same eyes, same fire. Bill grilled her, where she was from, who her folks were. But when Catherine told her story, it didn't line up, no ties to Clara or Leo. On Will and Catherine's wedding day, Bill watched his new daughter-in-law, and all those old feelings came crashing back. To shove them down, he knocked back a few extra whiskeys at the reception, thinking a good buzz might let him enjoy the night. But you know what they say. Liquor doesn't drown sorrow, it just makes it swim louder. Drunk as a skunk, Bill couldn't keep a lid on it. That ache for Clara flared up worse than ever. After the guests cleared out, he wandered the grounds, stumbling toward Will's bridal suite. He meant to turn back, but then his foot caught air, missed a step in the dark, and he crashed right into the window frame. Bad luck doubled down. His hand smashed through the paper panes, and inside, Catherine spotted him, screaming bloody murder, convinced he was some lecher creeping on her. When Bill finished spilling his guts, tears were streaming down his face. It hurt like hell to drag it all out. But finally unloading those years of baggage, that felt like a weight lifting off his chest. The folks crowded outside the courtroom, listening to every word, let out a collective sigh, like they'd been holding their breath for him. They'd been scared Bill might confess straight up to peeping, digging his own grave. Now Hugh Davis got the full picture too, and he turned to Catherine, sharp-eyed. You got any connection to this Clara Evans he's talking about? He leaned forward, waiting. At first, Catherine clamped her jaw tight, sticking to her story, insisting Bill had been sneaking a peek. But when she saw him there, face streaked with tears, spilling his soul like that, her hard edge started to crack. Her tense glare softened, and she took a shaky breath. I'm Clara Evans's daughter, she admitted, voice breaking. And Leo Tate's, too. Father-in-law, Bill. Did you know that after you left that night, my ma nearly bit her own tongue off to end it? She thought it was you coming back to her that night. But it was Leo who forced himself on her instead. When she realized what happened, it tore her apart. She was a wreck. Leo even told her it was her idea, that she'd begged him to take her. If she hadn't found out she was carrying me, she'd have been in the ground years ago. Catherine's voice hitched as she went on. But even with me in her belly, she never had a single good day. Leo hated that she couldn't let you go, Bill. He'd get liquored up and beat her senseless over it. When I was 13, she couldn't take it anymore. She left me a letter, then slipped off with that man. Downed a bottle of poison in the dead of night. She died alone. In that letter, she told me to find you someday, to ask why you were so cruel, why you handed her over to someone else like she didn't matter. If you hadn't laid it all out today, I'd have fought tooth and nail to see you rot in jail. Katharine broke down sobbing, her words choking out between tears. She pulled a folded letter from her sleeve and handed it to Bill Johnson III. He took it with trembling hands, unfolded it, and read. The second he finished, regret hit him like a freight train. He doubled over, pounding his fists against his chest, cursing himself out loud. Wispot sie des, ze accusa en ze accust. Leing ze trutbare. Hugh Davis stepped in to settle things. Since Bill's peeping wasn't some premeditated crime.
Just a drunken stumble born from family bagage.
It stayed a private matter for the Johnsons to sort out. Once they confirmed Catherine was Clara's daughter, Bill's heart was a mess. Half guilt, half relief. He sat down with his wife, Mary, and poured it all out. Mary, bless her, took it in stride. She understood the man she'd married. Right there in the courtroom. Bill stood up and made a pledge. He'd give half the Johnson family fortune to build up Richmond County. Roads, schools, whatever the folks needed.
The other half?
He'd hand it over to his son, Will, and Catherine to manage together. Hugh Davis perked up at that. Bill's move didn't just save the Johnson name. It gave Hugh a shiny feather in his cap for the governor's review. And it'd do wonders for the county's poor. A few years down the line, Richmond County started to thrive. Folks and officials pitching in together.
Turning the place into something solid. Hugh Davis, against all odds,
chose to stick around as judge. Passing up that promotion after all.
The people of Richmond County?
They got themselves some better days ahead. Now folks, Nancy Thompson chimed in. That wraps up our first tale.
Stick around. Next up, Ivy got another story for you. Don't miss it.
I reckon after this one, you're hooked already. The next one's called
The Thief Who Stole Too Little.
Caught red-handed and robbed by a woman's charm.
It's set back in colonial Massachusetts.
Just outside Salem town. There's this young fella named Liam Shaw. Stay tuned, you won't believe what he gets himself into.
Allrecht, folks, Nancy Thompson Said.
Story number 1's in the books. Now, let's dive into the second tale. If you liked what you heard so far,
drop a comment below.
And don't forget to subscribe and share. Here we go.
The Thief Who Stole Too Little.
Caught red-handed and robbed by a woman's charm.
This one takes us back to colonial Massachusetts.
Just outside Salem town, where a young man named Liam Shaw lived. Liam was the only son of an aging widow. His pa died young. Left his ma, Abigail Shaw, to raise him alone. Stitching clothes for neighbors to scrape by. Liam was a good kid though. He felt the weight of the family early on. By 17, he was up at dawn, selling odds and ends from a cart. And in his spare time, he'd roam the alleys, picking up odd jobs to pad their meager stash. Life wasn't fancy, but they got by. Now, Liam hit 20 this year. And that's when trouble rolled in. A drought hit Salem town hard. Fields dried up, crops failed. And most folks, Liam included, took a beating.
Life got dicht, fast.
And just when you'd think it couldn't get worse.
Leaky roofs la fareni night. Abigail came down sick.
A nagging cough that wouldn't quit. Needing constant care and medicine year-round. Liam, being the dutiful son he was, sold off their last patch of farmland to a local bigwig, Henry Brooks, to cover the doctor's bills. He started waking before sunrise,
walking till the stars came out,
hustling along the roads, hoping to claw back a little extra to ease the strain.
One afternoon,
Liam was out with his cart, peddling wares on the outskirts of town, when he crossed paths with a couple of no-good drifters. These two were the type who'd rob you blind and call it a favor. They snatched his coin pouch, then made off with half his goods to boot.
The money from the land sale? Long gone by now.
And with his pouch and stock swiped, Liam was in a bind. His ma's birthday was a month away. What was he supposed to do? He slumped under a big oak,
staring off into the distance.
The pressure of it all squeezing tears he couldn't cry. Folks say when you're warm and fed,
you start dreaming big.
But when you're cold and hungry,
desperation takes away.
Liam glanced around at the houses nearby. Fancy places, cozy and lit up. They're living, he thought. And me?
I'm just surviving.
Things had hit rock bottom. And he figured, why not take a gamble?
Be a gentleman thief, Justus Once.
If he could pull it off. Get enough to fix his mar up.
Nothing else mattered.
After chewing on it a while, he made up his mind. Over the next few days, he scoped out the lay of the land, and finally settled on a target.
A tidy little house.
Not too grand but well kept. You could tell it belonged to someone with means.
It sat at the end of a quiet lane,
backed up against a patch of woods. Perfect for a quick getaway if things went south. Better yet, Liam had picked up some gossip around town. The place belonged to a couple. A merchant husband who was hardly ever home. And his wife. That very morning, he'd seen a man step out of that house.
Shoulder a heavy pack.
And head off. Looked like a long trip. Liam set his plan. Tonight was the night. That afternoon, he trudged home. Told his ma he was off to the next county to buy stock. Said he'd be back tomorrow. He even asked the neighbor lady, Widow Clark, to keep an eye on Abigail while he was gone. As dusk settled in, Liam slipped into the woods behind that house.
Wettchen, Weiting.
Studying every shadow that moved. The wall around that house was tall. Too tall to climb easy. But there was one spot. A stretch about 5 feet along the west side.
Low enough to scramble over.
Liam bided his time in the woods.
Wettchen the sun dipped below the horizon.
He waited a couple hours more. Till the town went quiet. Most folks tucked in for the night. Then he crept out from the trees. Scaled that low wall. And dropped into the yard. 3 rooms made up the main house. The window on the west side was cracked open just a hair.
No sound coming from inside.
He slid it up slow and careful. Then hoisted himself through. His eyes adjusted to the dark. And he could just make out a square box by the head of the bed. Probably a lady's jewelry case, he figured. He edged closer.
Heart pounding like a drum.
Right then,
a sleepy voice mumbled from the bed.
Soft and slurred with drowsy irritation. What took you so long? I was out cold already. Liam froze. Panic shooting through him like lightning. He spun to bolt back out the window. No way was he sticking around to get nabbed. But before he could make it, a hand grabbed his wrist. Stronger than he'd expected. And yanked him down onto the bed. It was the woman of the house. She was all over him in a flash. Fumbling at his shirt. Tugging at her own nightgown like she meant business. Liam hadn't ever been with a woman. Heck, he hadn't even courted anybody yet. This was a whole new kind of trouble he'd never bargained for. His head spun, half terrified, half paralyzed.
Scared stiff scream and bring the whole town running.
He wriggled free of her grip. Shoved her arms off.
And dove for the window.
Scrambling over the sill and hitting the ground running. He vaulted that low wall again. And didn't stop till he was deep in the woods. Leaning against a tree. His chest heaved.
Heart still hammering like it bust right out.
That had been a close call. Too close. He sat there a while. Trying to steady his nerves. Ears straining for any sign of a chase.
Nothing, no shoots, no lanterns flickering.
Looked like she hadn't raised the alarm. After a couple hours cooling off, Liam's head cleared enough to think straight. Something wasn't adding up. The husband was gone, he'd seen him leave. And the way she'd talked. What took you so long? Sounded like she was expecting someone else.
Somionische knere alvel.
This wasn't a faithful wife waiting up for her man. She was stepping out on him, plain as day. That clicked in Liam's brain. And he couldn't help but glance back toward the house. Sure enough, a shadow was moving in the distance.
Coming closer. Slipping into the yard like a fox in a henhouse.
Had to be her lover.
Sneaking in for a late night rendezvous.
Good thing Liam had hit the place early. If he'd waited till now, he'd have been caught red-handed by that guy instead.
The heist hadn't panned out.
But at least he dodged the gallows for now. He was ready to call it quits and head home. But curiosity got the better of him. Who was this fella creeping in? Was he really her side piece? Liam doubled back to the low wall. Listened hard, no noise from the yard. He climbed over again, light as a cat, and sidled up to the window, pressing his ear close. He caught her voice first, sharp and scolding. You devil, why re you here now? It's late, way too late. Just a bit ago, some little thief tried breaking in. I grabbed him, but he hightailed it out. Thought it was you at first. A man's voice answered, low and smug. Good thing I wasn't around then. That thief's got no spine. Running off like a scared rabbit. I was holed up at the tavern tonight, dodging a fella who owed me money. Once he cleared out, I headed here. The woman huffed. That sneak had me all worked up. I really thought it was you. I even mumbled at him. What took you so long? I was out cold. If anybody else heard that, they'd think I'm some loose woman waiting for her beau. If that thief blabs, and it gets back to my husband, we're cooked. The man chuckled darkly. Sooner or later, this'll blow up in our faces. I've been thinking, why not make him disappear for good? The woman didn't miss a beat. I've been chewing on that too, she said, voice low. He's sitting on all that money. And what VE I got? Nothing to show for it. In the end, it'll all go to those brats of his. Why not take them out when they're young? Then finish him off and let the law sort it out. The man leaned in. Don't you worry, I've got it covered. I've got a friend down in Boston. A dockhand with some tricks up his sleeve. He told me about a way. Quiet, clean, no fuss. No pain, either, just lights out. Next time your husband rolls back into town, we'll make our move. Perfect, she purred back. I'm in, whatever you say. Liam's blood ran cold as he listened. Their words slithering through the window like poison. This wasn't just some cheating couple. They were downright wicked. Plotting to kill a man and his kids for a pile of coins. He backed off from the window, quiet as a shadow, and climbed over the wall one last time. He didn't stop till he hit an old, crumbling chapel outside Salem. Slept there till dawn. Fitful and restless. His first stab at thieving had crashed and burned. And thinking back on it, he still felt the jitters. Too rash, too dumb. He'd nearly lost himself out there. But at least he hadn't swiped anything. That was a small mercy he could cling to. Life had to go on though. The cart wasn't gonna push itself. So Liam shoved the whole thieving idea out of his head. And got back to work. A few mornings later, he checked on Abigail, made sure she was settled. Then hitched up his cart and headed out. Business was good that day. Sold out before noon. A rare win. Feeling lighter, he grabbed a couple sweet rolls for his ma, and hustled home. When he walked in, the door was ajar. And there, sitting with Abigail, was a stranger. A man, maybe 30-something. Dressed sharp. Fancy coat, polished boots. The kind of get-up that screamed money. Liam stepped inside, and Abigail's face lit up. Liam, come here, son. Meet your savior. If it wasn't for Mr. Thomas Reed here, you'd be coming home to an empty house. Liam's head spun. He didn't know what to make of it, but he did as she said, bowing low and thanking the man proper. Thomas stood, waving it off with a grin, but Abigail filled in the blanks. Turns out, she'd been itching to help Liam out. Couldn't stand watching him break his back alone. So, after he'd left that morning, she'd trudged 3 miles to Widow Ellis's place, dropping off some mending work for a few pennies. On the way back, that cough of hers flared up. She'd collapsed by the roadside, out cold. Lucky for her, Thomas Reed happened by, scooped her up, brought her home, and even called the local doc to patch her up. Hearing it all, Liam's chest tightened. This man had saved his ma's life. He dropped to his knees again, thanking Thomas, till his voice gave out. Thomas just laughed, brushing it off. No need for all that, I'm just passing through. But your ma wouldn't let me leave till you got back. Abigail tugged at Thomas's sleeve. Son, fetch some bread and cheese. We owe this man a meal at least. Liam scrambled to pull something together, feeling a little sheepish about their plain fare. But Thomas didn't bat an eye. Sat right down with them, eating like he'd grown up on the stuff. After a few bites and a couple mugs of cider, the talk loosened up. Thomas spilled his story. He was a merchant from Boston. Owned a dry goods shop in the city. His folks had passed 6 years back. And now it was just him and his wife, Eliza Reed, running things in Salem while he traveled for trade. He'd been hauling stock up from Plymouth this trip. sent his wagon ahead with his hired hands, and took a detour to visit a buddy. On his way back, he'd stumbled across Abigail. Couldn't just leave her there. So he'd stepped in. Liam couldn't find words big enough to thank him. Just kept raising his mug, toasting the man's kindness till the room spun a little. By the time they'd polished off the food, Thomas Reed stood up, ready to head out. Abigail wouldn't hear of it. "Mr. Reed, you're not leaving till my boy sees you home safe," she insisted. "You've had a few mugs of cider. Let Liam walk with you. It'll ease my mind." Thomas started to protest, but Liam cut in quick. "Mr. Reed, don't argue. M'll fret all night if you don't let me. It's the least I can do." Thomas cracked a smile. He could see the stubborn streak in Abigail ran deep in her son too. "All right then, lead on Liam," he said. And the two of them stepped out into the evening chill. They traded small talk as they went, covering half an hour's walk into Salem proper. But what Liam didn't see coming, Thomas's path took them straight to the north end of town, right up to that same tidy little house he tried to rob. Liam's stomach flipped. No way, he thought. This guy's the husband of that snake of a wife? He froze mid-step, a cold sweat prickling his neck. Thomas didn't catch the shift in Liam's face. Just turned to him with a nod. "Here we are, Liam, I'm home. Been a long day, so I won't ask you in tonight. Next time you're free though. Swing by, we'll sit a spell. Oh, and here." He pressed a small pouch into Liam's hand. 10 shillings. "Take it for your ma's medicine. I grew up dirt poor myself. Lost my own ma, 'cause we couldn't afford a doc. I know what it's like." Thomas stepped up to the door and knocked. As it creaked open, Liam caught a glimpse inside, just long enough to feel his gut twist again. He clutched the shillings, mind racing, and turned for home. When he got back, Abigail spotted the pouch right off. "Where'd that come from?" she demanded. Liam spilled the truth. How Thomas had saved her, fed them, and now handed over cash he didn't have to give. But Abigail's face darkened. "You can't keep that, son," she said, firm as iron. "That's no small sum. First thing tomorrow, you take it back to Mr. Reed. We're poor, sure, but we don't take handouts twice over. That man's a saint. Heaven's gonna look out for him, mark my words." "Yes, Ma," Liam mumbled, heading to bed with a head full of knots. That night, he couldn't sleep. He'd overheard Eliza Reed and her lover plotting to kill Thomas. The same Thomas who'd saved his ma, shared a meal, and shown him nothing but good. That kindness was a debt bigger than any Liam could repay. He'd been a fool to think he could just sit on what he knew. No way he could let Thomas walk into a trap. Then it hit him. A spark of a plan. He bolted upright, muttered to Abigail he was off to the next village for supplies, and dashed out the door. He ran straight to Thomas's house, heart pounding, and raised a fist to knock. Then stopped cold. "What am I even doing?" he thought. Would Thomas believe some wild tale from a kid he barely knew? And if he asked how Liam knew, what was he supposed to say? "I broke into your house and heard your wife plotting to kill you?" That'd land him in the stocks, or worse. He backed off a dozen steps, pacing under a tree, mind churning with no clear answer. After wrestling with it a good long while, he spotted a figure creeping toward the low wall, slipping into the yard like a thief in the night. Had to be the lover, sneaking in to seal Thomas's fate with Eliza. Liam's pulse kicked up. He darted to the wall, ready to climb over and warn Thomas, when his foot banged into something hard. He glanced down. Half a dozen cider jugs, stacked there like someone forgotten them. His eyes lit up. An idea clicked. He grabbed the jugs, one by one, and lobbed them over the wall into the yard. They smashed loud against the stones, a racket that'd wake the dead in the still night. Sure enough, a groggy voice roared from inside. "Who's out there making a fool of themselves? This is ridiculous." Footsteps thudded, and the back door swung open. Thomas stormed out, a stout stick in hand, ready to chase off whoever was raising hell. Liam rushed up, keeping his voice low. "Mr. Reed, it's me, Liam Shaw. I've got something urgent, sorry about the noise. Thomas squinted, then recognized him in the moonlight. Liam? What in blazes? He lowered the stick, noticing the kid's antsy look, and followed him a few steps away from the house. Liam pulled him to a quiet spot, spilling it all in a rush. Mr. Reed, I'm ashamed to say it, but I tried robbing your place a few nights back. Had no choice, I thought. I was wrong, and I stopped. But I heard something. Your wife and some fella planning to kill you when you got back. I didn't know it was your house till tonight. I swear it. Thomas Reed's jaw dropped, his eyes wide as Liam's words sank in. He couldn't wrap his head around it. His wife, Eliza, the woman he'd shared a bed with for years, cooking up a scheme to put him 6 feet under? If Liam hadn't stumbled into this mess, he'd be a dead man come morning. His chest heaved, anger and disbelief churning inside, but he kept it together. After a long, heavy pause, he clapped a hand on Liam's shoulder. Wait here, he said, voice tight. I'll handle this. He turned and marched back to the yard. Thomas poked his head inside, forcing a laugh as he called to Eliza. Ah, just old Jake Miller, drunk as a skunk again. That fool smashed some jugs out back. Thought he'd serenade us or something. Go back to sleep, honey. I'm gonna haul Jake home. Won't be back till morning. Eliza knew Jake, Thomas's rowdy tavern buddy who'd get 3 sheets to the wind and pull stunts like this. She yawned. All right, just watch yourself. Don't stay up carousing with him like last time. Thomas grinned. Got it, darlin', I'll behave. He grabbed his coat, shut the door behind him, and slipped back out to Liam. All right, Liam, he whispered. We're gonna sit tight and watch. Let's see which rat comes crawling to finish me off. The two of them hunkered down by the wall, eyes glued to that low stretch, waiting in the dark. About half an hour ticked by. Then, sure enough, a figure flipped over the wall, smooth and quiet as a cat. Thomas squinted, and his face hardened. Well, I'll be damned, he muttered. Samuel Pierce. Never would have pegged him. He nudged Liam. Smon, follow me. Thomas led the way, cutting east through Salem town, Liam trailing close behind. After a brisk walk, maybe a quarter hour, they stopped at a weathered clapboard house. Thomas banged on the door. Jake, you asleep yet? He hollered. A beat later. A groggy who's there? Grumbled from inside. It's Thomas, open up. The door creaked open, and a wall of tavern stink, booze and sweat hit them. Jake Miller stood there, mid-30s, broad as a barn, face flushed red from a night of drinking. They stepped inside, and Thomas laid it all out, the whole twisted tale from start to finish. Jake slammed his mug down, shattering it on the table. That snake Samuel Pierce, he roared. No good, rotten cur. After you pulled him out of that scrape in Plymouth, he'd still turn on you like this? Oughta be strung up. Ain't worth the dirt he walks on. Liam pieced it together from their talk. Samuel Pierce was a small-time trader in Salem, a weaselly sort who'd hit hard times. 7 years back, he'd been jumped by bandits down in Plymouth, left for dead, till Thomas came along and saved his hide. Samuel had clawed his way up since, but his business was floundering. He'd been a regular at Thomas's place ever since that rescue, and Thomas, too decent for his own good, never turned him away. Never figured he'd cozy up to Eliza and plot to kill him for his stash. Catch a thief with the goods. Catch a cheat in the act, Thomas said. Cool as steel now. The three of them hashed out a plan. They'd nab Samuel and Eliza red-handed, drag 'em straight to the magistrate. Next morning, bright and early, Thomas headed home, Jake lumbering behind him like a bear with a grudge. Jake played it up first, calling out to Eliza with a slur. Last night I got sauced. Messed with Thomas something fierce. Sorry about that, ma'am. Eliza smirked. She knew Jake's antics too well to care. Then Jake turned to Thomas. Say, I got a shipment of cloth coming in from Boston. Could use your eye to check the quality. You're the best I know. It'll take a good 10 days. Hope the missus don't mind. Eliza waved it off. You men and your big deals. I don't meddle in that. Just stay safe out there. She bundled up some clothes for Thomas, and the two of them headed out the door. Or so she thought. Once they were clear of town, they doubled back to Liam's place. Abigail perked up seeing Thomas again, figuring he had business with her boy. Didn't pry, just smiled and let him be. From that night on, Thomas, Jake, and Liam set up watch near the house, staking out a spot by the magistrate's office next door, waiting for their chance. 3 nights later, right around midnight, Samuel slunk in, over the wall. Same as before. The trio split up like clockwork. Liam gripped a stick, guarding the wall. Thomas and Jake charged the house, ready to bust this wide open. Thomas Reed kicked the yard gate open with a thud, then barreled through the front door. Jake Miller hot on his heels. Inside, Samuel Pierce and Eliza Reed were sprawled out, clothes half on, caught like deer in a lantern's glow, too stunned to even scramble. Thomas grabbed Samuel by the collar and laid into him, fists flying. Years of trust shattered in every punch. Colonial law had a rule back then. If you caught someone messing with your spouse and killed them in the heat of it, no court would blink. But Thomas held back. Didn't want blood on his hands. Just wanted him to feel it. Jake waded in, hauling Samuel off the floor while Thomas cooled off. With Liam's help, they trussed up the pair, Samuel and Eliza, and marched them straight to the magistrate's office. Back then, adultery didn't mean the gallows. But it wasn't a slap on the wrist either. The court handed down its verdict. Samuel and Eliza each got 90 lashes. A brutal tally. And the magistrate wasn't shy with the whip, making it clear he didn't take kindly to their kind. That night, locked up and battered, both of them gave out. Died in their cells before dawn. Once the dust settled, Thomas opened a general store on the edge of Salem town. He tapped Liam Shaw to run it, put him in charge of the day-to-day. Liam knew Thomas was throwing him a lifeline, and he felt it deep. Gratitude mixed with a sting of guilt from his thieving flop. He poured himself into the work. And 2 years later, that store was humming. Business booming like never before. Come early winter that year, Thomas and Jake played matchmaker, setting Liam up with Sarah Lyman, a sweet girl from a solid family down the road. From then on, Liam's days were full. A happy home. A steady life. The bond between Liam and Thomas? Pure chance at first. But it grew into something ironclad. They'd saved each other. Liam pulling Thomas from death's door. Thomas lifting Liam out of the gutter. Think about it. It all spun out of kindness. Thomas's good heart had him saving Abigail that day. And Liam, paying it back, risked everything to tip Thomas off, even if it meant owning up to his own shame. That spark of decency from Thomas set off a chain. Liam's warning was the fruit of it. In a way, Thomas had sown his own salvation, reaping the reward down the line. Life's like that, ain't it? A little goodwill goes far. Helps others, sure. But it stacks up luck for you too. And that's the end of our tale, folks. If you enjoyed this ride, let me know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. Share it around. Thanks for sticking with me. See you in the next one.